Okay, the one last thing that I wanted to talk about was what happens when you take a number and raise it to the power of 0. Now, the rule in the yellow box describes what happens. Basically, this rule says that any number raised to the power of 0 equals 1. And it's an easy enough rule to remember. You may be wondering why that is. How does that make sense? So what I'm going to do now is give you a few different reasons why it makes sense to say that any number to the power of 0 equals 1. But the first thing that I want to do is to address this intuition that some of you may have, that if you take a number, let's say 2, and raise it to the power of 0, intuitively, for a lot of you, it seems like the answer should be 0. Now, why does it seem that way? Well, it seems that way because we're dealing with exponents. Exponents are repeated multiplication. So in your head, what's happening is, well, we're multiplying and there's a 0 involved, and anything multiplying by 0 equals 0. Shouldn't the answer be 0? Well, this intuition is faulty. Now, why is that? Well, let's consider the expression, let's say 2 raised to the 3rd power, which is 2 times 2 times 2, right? 3 is the exponent, but at no point in this problem do I multiply anything by 3. So then the question arises, okay, well, how else can we approach this question of 2 to the power of 0? Well, we could think of patterns, right? Like, what is 2 to the 3rd power? It's 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 again is 8. What is 2 to the 2nd power, right? We're going down by 1. That's 2 times 2. That's 4. What is 2 to the 1st power? Well, that's just 2, right? So, of course, that equals 2. So what's happening as we go down in power? 8, 4, 2. We're getting rid of a factor of 2, which in a sense means that we are dividing by 2 each time we're going down in power. So if the pattern holds, you would think that 2 to the power of 0 would be whatever my previous answer was, divided by 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. If you want to, you can try this pattern for 3 to the power, 4 to the power, 5 to the power. You will see that the pattern holds very well. There's another way to think about it that maybe makes sense, and that is 2 to the 3rd power. Another way of thinking about it isn't really 2 times 2 times 2. It's 1 times 2 times 2. What you're doing is you're multiplying 1 by 2 3 times. It's equivalent to saying 2 times 2 times 2, but it does help understand why, as we keep going down in power, right, 2 to the 1st is just 1 times 2, 2 to the power of 0 is 1, and there are no more 2's to multiply by. The answer is just 1. It's basically 1 multiplying by 0 2's. We're not multiplying by any 2's at all. The answer is just 1. This particular way of thinking about exponents gives you slightly better intuition about what it is that's actually happening. So if it's still not quite clicking, I urge you, before moving on, just take a second, internalize what I have said. Just make sure you understand what this rule means is that any number, even 0, when you raise it to the power of 0, the answer is always 1, right? Because I start with 1 and I multiply it by 0 times. I don't multiply 1 by 0 at all. It never changes. So any number to the power of 0 equals 1. Let's take a look at a few examples now. if I was to try to simplify 5 to the power of 0, well, that's pretty easy, right? Any number to the power of 0 equals 1. How about negative 25 to the power of 0? Also easy, but you have to be careful. Remember, what's being raised to the power of 0 is just 25. So the answer is negative, and 25 to the power of 0 is 1, right? The minus sign acts after the exponent. Looking at the next example, it may look complicated, but we don't really care what 3x plus 14 equals, because any number raised to the power of 0 equals 1. So it's just 7 times 1, which is 7, because 3x plus 14 to the 0th power is 1. So it's a very, very easy rule to remember, a little bit harder to make sense of and truly understand why it is the way it is. But the main thing you have to get out of this video is anything to the power of 0 equals 1. Okay, you are now ready to start on the assignment. Good luck.